What an awesome animation. We could get banned. I already thought that with AI these days it only takes about a minute to fake a voice. I think that's not right. It's interesting, but it's not right. I'm not going to comment on that. Watch from your phones.
Webmural Breakdown. This is a show where design agency owners break down websites to the molecular level. Art director Arsen Berezovsky evaluates the visual style, branding, typography, and colors, while marketer Mikhailo Yemchura analyzes marketing, copywriting, user experience, and business aspect. Want to know what really makes a website truly successful? Watch our show, develop your visual literacy skills, and learn from the experience of professionals.
Hello friends, welcome back to our Webmural segment. And today we'll be reviewing the best websites and news sites. So we go to the websites tab and select sorting by newest. And what do we see in front of us? A treasure, so many new ones. Shall we go in order? I think yes. Start. We have Andriy Tsibulsky. He literally published this site today. Go ahead and open his profile. The name and surname seem very familiar to me. Maybe we've seen him somewhere on Telegram or Instagram. Wix Studio Expert. Let's take a look. A very fresh preview. All right, friends, let's quickly go over a reminder of how this all works. I'll be looking at the visuals, the creativity, and interesting solutions regarding typography, colors, and styles. Misha will focus more on UX, the text, and probably more on the business and conversion aspects. And from what I saw in the preview, this project is actually really, really cool. There's an awesome job here with composition as well as with typography and colors. We can see that 3 colors I use here, basically white, black, and pink. It's a very nice combination. The grid is interesting and the nav bar is unconventional. On the left are the phone number and email. On the right, the menu items, which is rare. Usually we see a standard horizontal menu. That's a familiar and very popular pattern. An awesome character, really. Using a person, especially a human face on the first screen, looking directly at you, at the user, is always a win because it conveys emotions. What kind of emotions is he conveying here? Well, something like interesting ones. Even in course projects, it's very rare to see it stylized like this. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it because we'll have a hover effect there. It's pink. Yes, it's pink. And yes, it's stylized to match the site style. And of course, we can already see in the text that it says revolutionizing drum and bass sound. So this is something about music, and accordingly, the guy in headphones is listening to some music, and you can see in his eyes that he's satisfied and focused. It seems to me that his eyes look blissful. He's just like, or maybe disappointed. The bass is pounding and his mouth is slightly open, and he's enjoying. Well, while you were talking about the design part, I managed to quickly read and realize that this is a Ukrainian drum and bass label that wants to find Ukrainian artists and help them get published on platforms. Basically, that's it. That's the whole offer. It's great that we have such labels appearing, and it's great that even niche ones like this, because very often labels can post just anything. But here they've chosen only drum and bass for themselves. Probably this is best listened to with headphones, which is why they chose that kind of character. And here there's a stream widget that shows where you can get published. The navigation is divided by artists, by playlists, and this is the landing page. What about the call to actions? As for the call to action, it's send demo. That's okay. What does send demo mean in music? It means to send a sample or an MP3 file, or maybe a link, though probably not to Spotify, more likely to SoundCloud so they can listen to it. Yes, SoundCloud, URL on the demo track and everything is very simple. Notice how they wrote your demo track. It feels like yo is intentional, not just a typo. In drum and bass, they probably say yo a lot. It's interesting that they didn't provide a contact to reach back out to. So most likely, if you have a SoundCloud, they're supposed to find you through SoundCloud and then get back to you, or not. Although what's the point of this step if you could just provide your Telegram or email for that? Maybe there's some second step. Send back, no, that's the submit button. Let's try to send some kind of link here right now. Submit, no. It's a conceptual site. This is a concept. That's funny. But actually, compared to previous sites, it's somewhat realistic. Very realistic, because there's a clear offer, well thought out call to action. Actually, these kinds of calls to action are exactly what should be there. Join us, he's okay too. It's an appropriate call to action for an artist who wants to join the label. And also the option to send a SoundCloud link is a well thought out solution. So it's not just an email or some random nonsense you have to enter. Probably they didn't think through having an email as a contact back form here, but that's a very minor issue. Well, Andrew, you really deserve a lot of respect here, because usually by the first or second screen, it's very clear, we can already tell whether it's a concept or not. With yours, it was hard to determine that right away. As Misha said, it's first about the call to actions and so on. Also, the fact that he really zoned in on the geo with a clear niche offer, and it's such a niche plus that plugin. And all of this creates the impression that this is a real website, yes. Why is this so cool, friends? We often get asked whether you should add a concept to your portfolio or not. Of course you should, friends. Concepts are an awesome thing that showcase your expertise and skills. If you make this portfolio project as realistic as possible, and you can make it as realistic as possible by using niche information, niche calls to action, and all sorts of niche elements. The second section is about who are we? What can we see here? We add another stylistic element, a thick stripe. That's quite interesting. I hope they'll have more things like that elsewhere. Maybe they'll use this stripe to highlight all such tags for the sections, and there's a big map to show their global reach, that their artists are spread all over the world, or that they listen to all over the world. Well, actually the artists are from Ukraine, but they listen to worldwide. Here, when you hover, we saw that it shows how many streams there are in different countries. That's also quite an interesting section. And here we have those little red stripes continuing again, which I noticed. These are their features: innovative vision. Yeah, dedicated address support, global network and reach. Very clear, cool. And they immediately showed these festivals. I assume these are festivals. Yeah, but he changed their names a bit. There's Coachella, but he called it Lolacella, probably today's, I guess not Tomorrowland, but today's land. So that people would still understand it's a concept and not, maybe it added a bit of fun, yeah. A super atmospheric photo from some performance. Again, he picked a great fun, dynamic, energetic, all caps, basically just like drum and bass music. And the visual design conveys this concept, this direction really well. And what's more, think about I, the wrote the vision. We live for that moment when our tracks ignite the crowd and light up the atmosphere. And here's a call to action aligned with their vision. You can join and become an artist. In other words, you can't join the vision unless you are an artist. Here, the call to action is clearly shown. Another interesting detail is these little dots he uses next to the tags. This dot represents the record button. There's always this dot for recording. It's a small thing, but it's not a square or a triangle. And here there's some animation. These are their artists. The ones who are on their label: Mazuka from Kiev, Echo from Prague. What an awesome animation, and what awesome...
Though earlier it was for Ukrainian artists, here one...
Or maybe they're just based abroad. The animation is awesome, and I'm 99% sure that those guys we saw above were generated by AI, and they look really cool. Plus the vibe on the pink background is fantastic. About the community, again, become an artist. Very atmospheric, vibe photos, and notice that all the pictures are in the same style, black and white. The color correction is the same, and we use stripes everywhere.
I don't want to play it because I'm not sure how original they are.
And the footer has a super cool vibe,
although it looks a bit scattered, kind of,
but I actually really like it here.
Listen, info contact links.
It's scattered because he found a really nice photo, cut it out as a background, placed it on a white background, and then arranged all the elements so that they would look harmonious with this photo. It looks very realistic. I would give this site 20 out of 10. That's truly a rare rating, but I like everything here, the rhythm, how we have certain blocks on a dark background with lots of space, some blocks where there's quite a lot of information, transitions where we have light blocks, dark blocks, and it all works really well together. This site is really interesting to look at.
Well, from a marketing positioning perspective, you can see that the designer and developer put in a lot of effort. They did a good competitor analysis, or they're deeply immersed in this topic, in this industry, because they seem to know the key terms. As for the design, I wouldn't say I like it that much. I don't always like small text because there's just too much empty space. Sometimes it looks a bit cheap to me. The thing is, if it weren't for the fact that it's labeled as a concept, I probably wouldn't even realize it's a concept site, because there's nothing here that indicates it's a concept. There aren't, to be precise, any mistakes that would indicate that. So I'm also giving it a 9.5. Of course, there are little things like the phone number, email, or renaming Coachella to something else. I think this was a deliberate choice by the designer, so as not to intentionally mislead potential people who might want to leave something here. That's why he even put a kind of warning status, indicating that this is a concept for those people who, like us, already believed it. Well done, Andriy. We haven't seen such well thought out websites in a long time.
Nice.
Next site, Dmytro Zidor. Let's take a look. A light profile, well, it is like just one case. A web designer with over 7 years of experience, already coming in with some authority, and there's even a show reel.
Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine.
7 years is a serious statement.
I get the feeling that this menu is now going to stay fixed on the right side. It'll be like a sidebar. That's what it seems like to me. The animation is all great. So this is the Homey Plus website, effective complex action fertilizers based on vermicompost. Listen, this is really cool. Honestly, it's really cool. Great font, great sense of elegant minimalism, and 2 columns that distinctly and effectively communicate the content and information. We see a very clear offer what is being sold and exactly how it is being sold. It's great that at the bottom we also have an animation showing the advantages, what's been confirmed and so on. There's a button to the catalog and a cool little video in a window where we can see the actual product, how it's used and what it looks like. The filming is very focused, detailed and high quality. I don't know, I really like the first screen.
Yes, the offer is clear. It's a company that produces fertilizers. It's really great that they hit those trust badges or proofs in a slider. He doesn't overload the site with text because usually all of that is just 3 or 4 boxes that you either read or skip to understand the advantages of this brand or product. The key action right away is to go to the catalog. It's repeated both at the bottom right and as the central button because in fact this is the main action of the site to lead people to the catalog so they can choose the right product, check the price and place an order. That's why leaving a request or getting contact information here on the side isn't really essential. In other words, everything is very clear in terms of the funnel towards the catalog. It's great that they place the language selection at the top next to the menu, even though the menu contains additional information like their phone number, social media links, downloading the catalog, a pitch deck or some presentation, and footer information. On previous sites, we had a case where the language switch was hidden in the menu, and that's a very big mistake. And here so far, Andrio Dimitrov is proving, you could say, or demonstrating that he really does have experience, and a lot of it because the basic mistakes haven't been made here. Second slide. I also really like that when we open the menu, there's this double background animation, first lime green, then white. It's a small detail, but it really creates a nice sense of dynamics. And the second thing is that our menu doesn't have a static white background, but instead has a slight transparency and background blur. And this feature also adds such a cool vibe, such a small... It moves in the background. If it didn't actually move,
it really moves and it actually works great. And again, it's really cool look. This is about working with hierarchy. Here we basically have the feedback and social media buttons, and there's also a download catalog button. And the download catalog button is in a solid black color, while these are either transparent or grayish. Designer Dimitrov clearly set the accents here, and most likely during discussions with the client, it was determined that downloading the catalog is a higher priority action than getting feedback at this stage. People download the catalog, learn more, and that PDF gives contact info again on the last or every page. This is a great example of hierarchy because designers without 7 years of experience, maybe just 1 or 12 would likely have done something different or put everything at the same level, or maybe shifted focus to feedback. How could feedback not be the most important thing? But here, that's not the case. I also want to say that honestly, I'm often against hamburger menus on websites because designers often add them thoughtlessly. It's just trendy. I'll just hide everything in a hamburger menu, even though there are only 3 or 4 items that could easily be placed right here. And the problem with that is you're making the client, the potential client or user, take an extra step. They have to click on the menu, then click again inside it to navigate. You don't need to do that, or do it the way Dimitrov did. Still, if you have a lot of menu items, figure out which ones need to be visible right here and now, so users can immediately access the most important categories of the site and hide the rest in the menu. So honestly, it's top-notch. The only downside I could mention right now is the red logo with some kind of snake actually. It looks more like a worm. It's probably a worm if we're talking about soil and the color is red, but we don't see any red color anywhere else. And we also don't see any such silhouettes or rounded shapes. You want to continue the company's branding, right? Visually. If they already have some elements that can be used to build collages, backgrounds, or sections of our website, that's probably what we'd like to do. At the moment, we don't see that here. But as I mentioned at the beginning, this is kind of a downside. It's not critical, but it could be a plus if it's done well, if those elements from the logo or other brand assets are successfully carried over to the website.
we have the third section, popular products next.
We skipped over the cards. They're really well put together.
Let's finish, then review cards.
All the way.
Origin, multi-component composition. Again, the visuals are great. The certificates are excellent. And there's an animation that shows the composition in detail with percentages and some important figures for farmers. Once again, there's a feature and again, support. So now let's move on to the product page. I think this will be the most important part here since there's a catalog, a button, And this is where the e-commerce starts. Look at how they've divided it here for fields, orchards and gardens, landscape design, personal farms, complexes, and fertilizer kits. Right away, they've split all the products according to customer segments. Farmers go here, gardeners go to another section, but it's interesting that it ends there.
And now we see the red color appearing. Interesting.
Home, then the product catalog. When we select for fields, the for fields option disappears here and appears over there. I don't know how good of a solution this is. I'd probably prefer to close the for fields option here or keep the active state and switch between them. Mentally, that's easier to perceive than having it jump around like this. But okay, let it be. Filters, super detailed.
Well, it's a bit inconvenient that you have to scroll the filters along with the page. It would be nice to set the fixed height and make the filters scroll internally, because right now you have to scroll both the filters and the page together, a small thing.
You mean make them wider, right?
No, I mean by heights, like the height of the screen, not the height of two screens. Right now, when you scroll the filters, the whole page scrolls along with you.
And if we select the filter, we can't see that it's active, that filter. So there's no...
Only inside.
That's nonsense. I think it's nonsense because you'll notice the catalog output is very small and the results are limited.
The card itself is great. I really like the card. It's minimalist and it shows all the most important information.
Price, name, description, add to cart, and then the features just take off.
Specifications,
usage, delivery, and materials. Wow, there's even this kind of educational content here and related products, SEO text, add to cart or no, that's an upsell. Let's get to the cart as well. Here it is, we have it. And here it appears when someone adds something to the cart pops up, you can click to check out and let's see if there are any upsells inside. Well, that's clear, everything stays, the price, all the information gets filled in step by step, and there's even a warning. So I think we've already covered a lot on this site, and it's mostly clear that Dimitro didn't just prove his point, but actually gave a real masterclass on how you can create a great e-commerce site in a very simple, uncluttered way, one where you can tell the brand story with minimal words so that people truly believe in it. I also think this belongs in the pantheon of the best websites on Webmural. I give it a 10 out of 10, actually even a 10.1.
By the rules.
Much respect to this designer, it's done really well, everything.
For me too, it's a guaranteed 10 out of 10. Honestly, that's rare again. Even before we started, we were told, maybe let's have less hate, less toxicity. But we thought, no, that's impossible. But it really is possible. This is the second site. Honestly, I don't even know what negative thing to say. Well, in terms of something negative, even in terms of some constructive criticism, because this is an awesome job.
Super. There's nothing more to add. So let's move on to the next site.
Are you subscribed to our Telegram channel? If not, I highly recommend you do it. You'll find the link in the description of this video. In this Telegram channel, we constantly share our updates, news, and some cool stories from our agency. Join a great community of web designers.
Third, we have Artem Yavorsky.
We've definitely reviewed Artem's work before, maybe even more than once. We constantly see him both on our channel and on various streams. Artem, hello to you. Thank you for always following us. We definitely looked at stretch ceilings in one of the episodes.
A very pleasant description indeed. I encourage everyone registered on Amoral to write human, concise, accurate descriptions, not copy-paste ChatGPT generated text.
Yeah. Well, you see how it is. Actually, the overall vibe is very similar to the previous site. Again, count 2 columns, square photos. The color scheme is somewhat similar with greenish tones, but here it's a bit darker.
I'd say it's most like the first site this feature was there.
Well, there really are the first, second and third sites. It's like they're all from the same deck of sites. What do we want to see on a psychologist's website? We want to see calmness, trust, and this site immediately conveys that to us. A great photo of psychologist Oksana, who is looking at you again with trusting eyes, inviting you to a session. Italics often seem to me to be a somewhat questionable choice. Here, it seems to me the italics actually work interestingly. It's very strange why it looks like this here. Maybe Artem, if you have the opportunity, you could also make the logo italic, because right now it's not necessary, but it feels like it would be nice to tilt it a bit, since we have it in the navbar as well.
And by the way, how do you feel about Italians at the bar?
Well, as I said, it's really debatable, but right here, I'm not sure. I think I actually like it. Look at how far apart our texts are from each other. Usually you want to see the headline and the subheadline next to each other, because most likely it's a narrative you want to read gradually, one after the other. But here you see our texts have ended up stuck to the top and bottom edges of the photo, and it stretched them out like that. What could be done here is either move the paragraph at the bottom higher up and add another big button below, since right now we only have one in the navbar, or move this lower and add a short description here, or maybe a scroll down button. But actually, I kind of like it this way, minimalistic, cool. The logos are recognizable. The candlestick is Jewish. Menorah. You hovered over the nav bar. The elements animate in a smooth and interesting way. That's cool too. An unusual hover effect. Usually what happens on hover is the text color changes, something like that. Here, it's pretty cool. And all the buttons are like pills, which is interesting.
Gambling, roulette,
Casino.
I understand the marketing positioning and offer here. They use an integrated approach to help you become the author of your own changes. They gladly guide you by the hand, everything's fine. But of course, you shouldn't ignore the call to action. Maybe it would actually be redundant to have it as a button because, in my opinion, there's already a lot of italics and a lot of these roundings here. Perhaps it would be better to just have an underlined text as the call to action button, where to go, how to contact, or to find out the price, since this is about the course and the program. And there are no prices, so probably the best approach here would be to have a find out the price option.
I don't know how common that is in psychology, though. It seems like the price is kind of a secondary thing there.
If you don't have money, then they won't help you. About relationships. The positioning and key directions of the lecture series are deep self-discovery, mindful relationships, and useful tools.
So it's a lecture series after all? Ah, it's a course, got it. That settles it for us, you see. So it really is a course page, not just a session with a psychologist. To book some individual work with a psychologist.
Well, maybe if it's a space for deep understanding, it's a bit confusing, very broad, but here there's immediately a course, a program.
Yeah, by the way, about the course, I didn't see that on the first screen. About the course and directions of the lectures. There are many definitions: course, lecture series, space.
About relationships is still the name of the course, as I understand it.
Yes, okay. Next, we have the program, relationship with yourself.
So that's one lecture, and it's just 1 to 3.
Lecture series.
Look, you see here, self-knowledge, self-esteem, self-acceptance. These are tags showing what this lesson is about. One lecture is under those same toggles.
Interesting.
I think that's not correct.
Well, it's interesting, but it's not correct.
That's not correct. Here, it's better to have another entity. This is a different hierarchical entity, and it shouldn't be on the same level or in the same row as the description.
Yeah, we have bonuses like that, you see.
These are the only things that should, in fact, be fixed here.
Well, I think there's still a bit of a lack of, some realism here. Usually a program includes screenshots and reviews.
On hover, sometimes different things pop up on such an element.
That was on the previous site. When we were working on the blog, we hovered and a photo would pop up, and here, in principle, something like that would probably work too. There was a program tag there, and here again there's a program tag, another one.
Okay.
Therapy is always a marathon, not a sprint. It's a journey toward deep self-understanding. Still, this is probably not a program, but rather something from the author.
Manifesto.
Metaphorical cards.
That's interesting. There's more edited. You see these Mac decks.
Some of the decks are interesting. You can still buy the decks here. They've added a bit of commas here too. Damn, well, I don't really like these different shades of green on these cards.
God, what is this? What is it?
Nice illustrations, but what they mean is probably not clear to us right now. Metaphorical cards, perhaps used for therapy with these pictures. Not esoteric tarot here, we're more about
men's fears.
What language is that? Serbian?
Men's fears about the author me.
Here, it's rather interesting how things are hidden at the end. I wouldn't say it's interesting. So little text.
This is the difference between a designer with 7 years of experience who tries to show everything without click or hover, so it's perceived immediately.
If there's one sentence.
And very often designers with a bit less experience try to put everything into some kind of animation.
Solution for solution.
Worse on click, better on hover. There's some kind of strange delay here. First the text disappears, then the frame disappears.
Let's wrap it up. So for the visuals, let's say 6 out of 10. The first screen seemed to have great potential. Overall, I probably liked half of the site, but there are quite a few solutions that I would have liked to see done better. I mentioned this earlier, that it was probably about 6.5 out of 10, something like that.
I'll probably stick to that range as well, around 6 points. Again, there's no consistency in what this is, a course, a space, a lecture hall, or some kind of mentorship. There's also sometimes a lack of a call to action, and we don't understand the price either. We probably need to find out what it is during or after consultations, but that's not mentioned anywhere either.
Another point I noticed when Misha was sharing his opinion is about the font used for the headings. Here we had it in an italic serif style, but further down it was almost nowhere to be found. Like, it's only used here in the programs, that's it. Here it's not the same, here it's not, here it's not, here it is, here it's not, and again, it's about consistency. If we had Artem here with us right now, I would ask him, what logic did you use to structure the heading styles? For some reason, I feel like there wouldn't be a clear answer.
I would ask, yeah. And so that the spirit of oblivion doesn't take away all this knowledge about mistakes, leave a like, subscribe, and then you definitely won't forget anything. The first site as well. Ivashin.
Second site.
Ivano-Frankivsk.
Human, simple, concise.
Yeah, a bit
creative.
1 year. Let's go in.
1 year. Now, there will be a challenge to find out whether this particular font is truly a well thought out decision, or if this monospaced font was simply selected at random without any real consideration.
Well, probably from the logo.
Same.
Well, no. When this company was just starting out, some friend drew this logo. They're afraid to change it because they think they have a really strong brand and that it needs to be changed. And then maybe they got stuck on this, what's it called, typeface?
Yeah, a monospaced font. That's the kind of font developers use when they're writing code. And for us, it always has this association with something technical.
Like a typewriter.
So what are we actually talking about? It's probably, well, clothing, maybe ethnic clothing for women. And that's why Chistotil in this kind of font works, because the font itself feels really ethnic, runic, maybe even Old Slavic. It even feels like this font could be embroidered on some piece of clothing.
The name is great.
Celandine.
For a clothing trend, Chistotil.
Nice ovals where the photos are placed at various artistic angles, and you can immediately see both a close-up, how it looks in full size, something in between, and we also see two distinctive handwritten fonts, which clearly tell us that everything is carefully sewn and made individually for you with care and attention to detail from natural, environmentally friendly fabrics.
That's a statement for 7 years. Without clicks,
Yeah, totally. Absolutely, yes. The only thing is this font, damn, I really wish I could change it.
it's cool, yeah. It immediately moves to the second screen. Why us, eco products, custom tailoring, made with love.
This is exactly the kind of landing page where you get targeted on Instagram stories, see a cool video, and decide to check it out. Why us catalog?
It should be,
That's interesting, by the way. That's interesting. That's a random photo, which actually is from...
most likely it's real, but
That's definitely not linen. It's strange that the grid shifted left for this photo. That's a solution just for the sake of having a solution. I probably wouldn't want to do it that way, but that's how it kept going for us. Well, it's kind of interesting. Legs cropped. I don't want...
look here, dresses is like a category of dresses, and here it's clothing.
And what was the heading above there? And the main catalog is centered, and then it goes off at a bit of a diagonal. Well, that's definitely a faux pas. When the legs are cut off and the photo is kind of low quality, stretched out, and then there's this yellow outline that doesn't really match the whole thing.
How it will look roughly on mobile.
I don't know, let's not look at it basically. We get told dozens of times, check it on mobile, check it on mobile. It's hard to fully evaluate the visuals on mobile, so that's why we don't do it. A new font has been added. Why didn't we have this font before? Now we already have 4 fonts here. This About Us is one font, the one we had on the first screen. Another one, Antiqua, was added for the paragraph. And this cool font, if the home heading was done in this font,
1, 2.
it would be much better.
The reviews look real.
Yeah, screenshots are always interesting. It's hard to fake that. Well, in short, it's difficult.
But with reviews in clothing, it's better to go in the direction where you show how the clothes look on customers. That's always a win. So if people are posting this on Instagram and you actually have customers who post themselves wearing your clothes on Instagram, creating a separate section called Your Customers on Instagram will be better than just text. One is this, 3 photos.
And it crops them, making them unattractive.
I'm not going to comment on that. Contact, great. A map,
Honey candles. And what other flowers have been added?
flower is emulated. Let's quickly take a look at the product page now.
Interesting, the main callback on the first screen is contact us, not go to catalog or view products. Contact us right away. Here, why so many sliders? There's a vertical slider and a horizontal one to pick the color. You want to look closer at the fabric.
There are different textures.
Textures, yeah. It's the textures you want to see up close. As we can see, it's not just linen here. There are even some that look like corduroy. At least that's what it seemed to me. Something should be done so that the slider doesn't get cut off like that. It looks bad. It's not critical, but it does spoil the overall impression a bit.
There's a size chart here. This is that kind of information.
Maybe what's missing is you might also like this block with sliders at the bottom, like the Jane dress. And it's unclear why the product name choose a color and select a size is left aligned while all the other elements inside are centered. It looks kind of off. Either make everything centered or left aligned, because right now it's jumping around.
Yeah, the name, the price, everything's all over the place here.
It needs to be read smoothly, but right now it's neither here nor there. Chaos. But with a year of experience, let's remind ourselves, again, even with that experience, there will still be mistakes, and not just one. Now, you can clearly see the contrast between websites designed by someone with 7 years of experience and those designed by someone with just 1 year.
Well, the details are different, but I wouldn't say there's a significant difference.
And that's actually the whole secret. At first glance, nothing really seems different. Like, it's also done really well. But when you really start to dig in and notice these details here, 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 and here, you realize, yeah, this is definitely a designer with just a year of experience, no more. There's room for improvement, and I'm sure you'll keep working on it. So I wish you success. I'll probably give it a 5 out of 10. Like, I could have given it a 6, but Artem's solution was a bit better. 5 out of 10 with plenty of significant room to work and gradually improve your skills over time. Truly, thank you all for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.